Tax registration of government entities. This article outlines the special requirements and procedures for the VAT registration of certain government entities in the UAE. Unlike private sector businesses, government entities follow a separate and more controlled process due to their unique nature and role in providing public services, as well as their engagement in non-sovereign, commercial-like activities that may fall under the scope of VAT. The rules cover when and how government entities must register, the documentation required, restrictions on deregistration, and the rationale behind these special rules. 1. Requirement for government entities to register for VAT. Explanation. Not all government entities are automatically required to register for VAT in the UAE. Instead, only those government entities that are specifically identified in a formal cabinet decision, issued under Clause 2 of Article 10 of the UAEVAT Decree Law, are required to register for VAT. This approach ensures that only government entities involved in non-sovereign, commercial, or business-like activities which would normally be taxable if performed by the private sector are brought into the VAT system. Key points. Identification by cabinet decision. A cabinet decision formally names the government entities that must register. No automatic registration. Government entities not listed in the cabinet decision do not have a VAT registration obligation unless a subsequent decision includes them. Objective. This selective registration ensures that VAT applies only to the commercial and non-sovereign activities of government entities, while sovereign functions, core public service functions, remain outside the VAT system. 2. Application process for tax registration. Explanation. Once identified for VAT registration under the cabinet decision, the government entity must submit a formal application to the Federal Tax Authority, FTA. This process is similar to private sector registration but includes additional requirements specific to the government entity's status and activities. The government entity must submit details of its business activities, a clear explanation of the activities carried out, distinguishing between sovereign functions and taxable, non-sovereign activities, proof of government entity status, official documents confirming the entity's legal status as a government entity under UAE law, any additional information, any further documentation or information requested under the executive regulation or required as part of the FTA's internal registration process. Outcome. Once the application is reviewed and approved, the government entity receives a tax registration number, TRN. From the date of registration, the government entity becomes subject to all standard obligations applicable to VAT-registered entities under the UAEVAT law, including issuing tax invoices, filing periodic VAT returns, collecting and paying VAT to the FTA. 3. Restriction on deregistration. Explanation. Unlike private businesses, a government entity registered for VAT cannot simply apply for voluntary deregistration if they believe they no longer meet the threshold or if they wish to stop certain activities. Special rule for government entities. Deregistration requires cabinet decision. A registered government entity can only be deregistered if a formal cabinet decision is issued. This decision must be made based on the recommendation of the minister responsible for taxation. No standard deregistration process. Normal deregistration rules applicable to private businesses, such as seizing taxable supplies or falling below thresholds, do not apply to government entities. Rationale. This ensures that government entities cannot selectively opt in or out of the VAT system at will. It ensures that deregistration decisions are made with high-level oversight, ensuring consistency with broader fiscal and tax policy, transparency and public accountability, alignment with UAE's tax compliance objectives. 4. Purpose and rationale for special rules for government entities. Explanation. These special rules exist because government entities operate differently from private businesses. They engage in both sovereign activities, core public service functions, example, law enforcement, judicial services, public health services. Non-sovereign activities, commercial-like activities, example, renting government properties, selling publications, or operating commercial facilities. Key policy goals. VAT only applies to non-sovereign, business-like activities, ensuring that the provision of essential government services remains VAT-free. The Cabinet oversight ensures that only commercially significant government operations are subject to VAT, avoiding unnecessary complexity in taxation of purely public functions. This approach promotes transparency, proper classification of activities, and alignment with UAE's fiscal and economic strategies. For more details, contact us.